Now I am going to present a lecture on essential elements of a crime. There is one important maxim in criminal law. Actus non facit reum nisi mens sit rea. This is the Latin maxim. This maxim is considered on a fundamental principle of penal liability. This is a very, very important maxim. The penal liability lies on it. What is the meaning of this maxim? The maxim says an act and intent both must concur to constitute a crime. To constitute a crime, what we require is both act as well as intent. So mere act is not sufficient or mere intent is not sufficient. We require the both. Act and intent both must concur together to constitute a crime. In Street versus Parsley case, Lord Diplock, he said that an act does not make a man guilty unless his mind be also guilty. Which means, for example, if A pulls the trigger at B, itself is not sufficient. His mind be also have a mental element, that is a guilty mind, to kill B. A having an intention to kill B and stabs B. So here both the act is present, mental element, that is the guilty mind, is present to constitute a crime. I will give other example. X made an attempt to stab B. Immediately the B took a pistol out of his pocket and fires at him. No doubt here is the act, that is pulling the trigger is the act, but he does not have an intention to kill him. His intention is only to save his life. So this does not constitute a crime. Mere act of pulling the trigger does not make him a guilty of any offense. So what we required from Lord Diplock says is, mere act does not sufficient. We required to constitute a crime both act as well as mental element. The same view was expressed in Young Husband versus Love. So from these, what are the essential elements? We can draw the three. One is actus reus, is the physical element or the physical act. Mens rea, mental element, that is the guilty mind. And third is the consequence. These are the three essential elements required for any crime, whether it is a serious or petty offense. These are the three elements must be present, then crime will be completed. The victim's death, that is a consequence brought by the conduct of the accused, that is the pulling trigger or stabbing, etc. That is the physical act. And mental element is to kill him. A pulls the trigger or A shoots at B, for example. Pulling the trigger is the physical act. Forming an intention to kill B is the mental element, and death is the consequence. So all these three essential elements are required to complete a crime. If any one of the element is absent, the crime is incomplete. Such incompleted crimes are designated by the Professor Kinney as inchoate crime, I-N-C-H-O-A-T, inchoate crime, which means incompleted crimes. What is the order of priority? Which comes first? From the theoretical point of view, every act has to start in the mind. That is the mental element first. Then it will be exhibited in some form, that is the physical act. Then the consequence. So the order is mental element, physical element, and consequence. But when you come to the practical point of view, mental element cannot be seen or known to others. Suppose if I had an intention to kill B, who knows it? So nobody knows. So nobody can know or cannot be seen or cannot be known the mental element. So then how do you know the mental element? Only from the physical act. So physical act is the exhibition of the mental mind. Suppose if the A pulls the trigger, by pulling at the B, we can say that A had an intention to kill B. By pulling the trigger, by stabbing B, these are the incidents or the act of the accused clearly shows that he had a mental element. So from the physical act, we can draw the inference that he had a mental element. So in the practical point of view, the order is physical act comes first, then the mental element and the consequence. So these are the essential elements required for any crime, whether it is a simple offense or the petty offense or the serious offense. Now let us discuss one after the other. physical act, that is the actus reus. In order to create criminal liability, it is not sufficient just to have an act or intent. Just now we said that to constitute a crime we require intent, act and consequence. Again we are saying to create liability all the acts does not constitute a crime. Then what type of acts required? The actus must be the reus. That is, the act must be one that is prohibited by law. Only the acts which are prohibited by law are to be required. Taking the other's property is prohibited by law. Killing others is prohibited by law. Adulteration of food is prohibited by law. Rape, bigamy, there are so many acts in the criminal law prohibited by law. So such acts are required. So in order to constitute a crime we require one mental element. When you come to the physical act, the act must be one that is prohibited by law and the consequence. These are the three essential elements required for it. Now what is a physical act, which we have already said that physical act is nothing but the external manifestation of the mind of the person. We can see the mind of the person through his physical act, through his conduct. Now here we required, there must be the actual physical act regarding a big crime. There must be the real physical act. What is this actual physical act? What is this real physical act? In the sense, the consequence must follow directly from the physical act. The harm caused must be direct result of the act. That is, A pulls the trigger at B, the bullet leaves the gun, directly enters into the body of B and causes the death of the B. So the consequence, that is the death of the B, was directly followed from the actus reus. So there must be a direct link between the physical act and the consequence. Then we can say that it is actual physical act. Such type of physical act is required. It must be the causa causans, that is immediate harm is required and not the causa sine qua non, that is proximity cause. Nearby is not immediate harm is to be required, which is the example that bullet leaves the gun, enters to the body and die. So this is very, very essential to prove. I will give one example. A had an intention to kill B. For that he mixes a poison in the food and places it before the B. And now the before is going to take X stabbed B. So here two persons, one is the A and the other is the X. A is having a mental element. He did the physical act also. He mixes the poison and places before B. Completed. X had a mental element and he stabbed B. He also had a mental element and physical act. But the consequence, the third element, is directly flows from the act of the X and not from A. So the crime is completed with respect to the X and not A. So A is incompleted crime. Only mental element and physical act are present. The consequence is not the direct flow from the act of the A. It is a direct followed from the X act. So X act is completed, X is held guilty for a full offense of murder and A is held guilty for an attempt to murder. This is a very example. We can say that there must be the direct link between the physical act and the consequence. This is a very, very important. This is to be established by the prosecution. The prosecution has to establish the link between the physical act and the consequence beyond all reasonable doubt. If the prosecution fails to establish this link between the physical act and the consequence, it will not constitute a crime. It is not an offense. So the burden lies on the prosecution. The prosecution to establish the relation between or the link or the connection or the consequence follows from the physical act lies on the prosecution and he has to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. And I will give another example. A having an intention to kill B, for that he performs a puja. B dies. Is it possible to link between the death, that is the consequence, and the physical act of puja? There is no link, direct link between puja or the physical act and the consequence. It is not possible to establish the link between the two, so it will not constitute a crime. So what is required is the physical act and the consequence must link together. It clearly says that the consequence has to be followed from the direct act of the physical act. This is one point, very important. The next point, if any intervention cause comes between the physical act and the consequence. If any intervention cause between the physical act and the consequence, again it will not constitute offense. I will give an example. A wounds B. B goes to the hospital for the treatment. B dies because of the negligent treatment of the doctor. See, A wounds B, physical act, and B dies, consequence. Between the doctor's negligent treatment intervenes in between the two. So here the death or the consequence followed the physical act of the doctor, negligent act, and not from A. So A is, in case of A, crime is not completed. There is no link between the physical act and the consequence. Crime is not completed. Consequence, one of the elements is missing there. And it is the doctor who is responsible for committing this crime. R versus Hilton is 1838. Is a very, maybe we can cite it as the best example where the intervention was successful. The facts of this case are the accused was in charge of a steam engine. All of a sudden, he stopped the engine and went away. During his absence, some unauthorized person starts the engine and thereby caused the death of the deceased. Who is responsible? Whether the accused is responsible for committing the breach of duty or the unauthorized person. The court held that the consequence, that is the death of the deceased, follows is not the result of the accused, but it is some unauthorized person who entered and set the engine in motion during his absence is responsible for it. So the unauthorized person is held guilty. This is an intervention act, liable to punish. Professor Kenny has given a strong reason of opinion about the acquittal, because here the accused was acquitted. Professor Kenny gave a stronger reason why he was acquitted. He said that the prisoner has not expected any harm from his breach of his duty. So that's why he might have been acquitted. That is the Professor Kenny's opinion, and that's true also. The other case, R versus White's case, where the accused had an intention to kill his wife, kill his mother. For that he mixed a potassium cyanide in his mother's drink. After some time the mother found dead, and the medical evidence or the reports says that she died due to heart attack and not of the poison, which was insufficient to cause the death. Here also in case of White's, the crime is not complete. He had an intention and physical act. He mixed the potassium cyanide in his mother's drink. He had an intention to kill. But the consequences not directly follow the physical act of the White's, so White is not held guilty for this offense. And I will give one example. A wound B. B lying wounded, C came along and cut off the B's head. That is the intervention between the A's act. Here, A is not liable for causing the death of B unless A and C were acting concert. If they have planned, if they join together, unless A is not liable. So here it has to be proved that A and C have planned to kill B in such a way and in such a manner they did it, then only A is liable to be punishable. Otherwise A is not responsible for causing the death, and it is the C who is responsible for causing the death. So this is the intervention causes where the crime is not completed. We'll go to the next point. Physical act includes both the commission of an act as well as omission of an act. The definition of the crime is also same. It includes both the commission and omission. So committed act, we have already said that the act must be the prohibited. Only the prohibited acts are punishable. Then only it will constitute a physical act. Similarly, omission also, all omissions will not constitute a physical act. Then what type of omissions? It is only the illegal omissions. Only the illegal omissions will constitute the physical act. Next again question, what is an illegal omission? Illegal omission means where there must be a legal duty on the person to act and the person is in breach of that duty. I will give one example. What is the main duty of the police officer? The duty of the police officer is prevention of crime. The object of criminal law is also a prevention of the crime. The main object of criminal law is prevention of a crime. So the police officer has also the main duty is to prevent the crime. That is a legal duty imposed on the police officer. If the police officer fails to prevent the commission of the offence in his presence, that omission is illegal omission, because legal duty is imposed on the police officer and he committed a breach of that duty. He did not do it. He did not prevent the commission. That omission is illegal omission. Only such omissions will constitute a physical act, included in the physical act. So prohibited act or illegal omissions, these are included in the physical act. Similarly, you take a nurse. It is the duty of the nurse to give medicines to the patient at required time. If she did not do so, she has not given the medicine to the patient as per the schedule, and if the patient dies, the nurse is responsible because a legal duty is imposed on her. She must take care of the patient. So she is responsible. That is called illegal omission. So actus reus of omission is well illustrated in Gibbons versus Proctor case. A parent is held liable for murder if he or she, father or mother, if he or she causes the death of the child by starvation, not feeding it. Because section 125 CRPC and even Hindu law also, they have imposed a important duty on the parents that they have to take care of the children. If they have not provided food and if the child dies because of the starvation, the parents are held liable for murder because a legal duty is imposed on them. So that omissions is illegal omissions. The other case, Pitwood case, the level crossing keeper. What is the duty of the level crossing keeper? He has to close the gate whenever the train is approaching. If he fails to close, that is the legal duty imposed on him. This is the breach of contract of employment. It is main duty is to close the gate whenever the train is approaching. Suppose if he fails to close the gate when train is approaching and causes the death of any person, it is called illegal omission. Illegal omission. The other is Nichols case, where the old woman was convicted for manslaughter. This manslaughter under Indian law refers to the culpable homicide because it is an English case. They call murder and manslaughter. Murder, with same terms, we call it as a murder and culpable homicide. So she was convicted manslaughter because she has not provided a medical treatment for her tender grandson because she does not have an intention. Intentionally, she did not omit to give that. She is unable to give the medical treatment. So it is not murder. To lesser than that, culpable homicide. That is manslaughter. She is convicted. So far, we have studied that only on those persons legal duty is imposed and who has the breach of that duty, the omissions is called illegal omissions and they are liable. There is other important point also that was discussed in Dobinson versus Stone case, where if any person voluntarily took the responsibility of another person, here the person has taken responsibility of infirm, housebound and some unable person to maintain him. Later he failed to provide maintenance to him and the person died. He is responsible. So you take orphanages, old age homes, where the persons, they themselves voluntarily take the responsibility of the person. Automatically legal duty of, once they took voluntary responsibility, then the legal duty comes into it, and if anything happens, either intention or negligent, basing upon that, they are liable to be punishable. So that is also comes under the illegal omission. So the other point is physical act includes commission as well as omission. Now we see, so far we discussed the legal duty. But this legal duty is something different from the moral duty. Moral duty is not applicable here. We required only the legal duty. What is a moral duty? Not offering food to the beggar. Because law did not say anywhere, if you fail to provide a food to the beggar, you are liable to be punishable. No, it is not prohibited act. Even if you have a sufficient food at home, we are not giving a food to the beggar. If the beggar dies, we are not responsible. Because it is a moral duty, not legal duty. Similarly, A is walking on the deserted road at night in the winter saw a just born baby abandoned on the side. He can very well take the child without any financial problem or any other problem. He can save the child. He can take into his protection. And also he knows that the child will die if he left unprotected. Knowing everything, he did nothing and went away. The next day morning, the infant died of exposure. What is the liability of A? The A is not liable at all because the death of the infant has no direct link either to the commission or omission of the act of A. So the A is not responsible for it. So in this way, these actus reus, we required either it should be a legal duty or a prohibited act is to be committed, then that type of physical act are required under the essential elements of a crime.